Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. We just broke down pressure-filled teams that are staring down a massive, massive year. I think you got to start with Penn State. That's going to be the team you're going to want to watch very, very closely. Obviously, a lot of guys coming back, a very talented staff they're bringing in. Got to execute now. So it's going to be a fascinating thing to watch, and we will obviously unpack that as spring goes on. But we got to do a little bit of a midweek catch up. There's a lot of different things that have happened around the college football world. I have three here that I really want to zero in on, and we'll talk about this one first. We'll talk about the stuff that is going on over at UGA, and it's what's been going on at UGA for quite some time. Nitro Tuggle was arrested Thursday morning on charges of reckless driving and speeding. He was released from jail about 2:55 a.m. with a $26 bond. Very small bond, there's no doubt about that, but very obviously something that has been happening in Georgia for quite some time. I believe there's 25 different incidents since 2023. 20 different people, I believe, have been involved in these incidences, and another one happened early last week, or I believe, late last week, excuse me, and it was Marquise Easley, a offensive lineman that mainly rode the bench last year, very talented young kid. He actually crashed into the Athens Bridge Apartments. If you saw that picture, it was tough. There's no doubt about that. Both those players have been suspended indefinitely as they kind of get an idea of what is going on here, how to handle those two situations, and we'll see what happens there. I think Marquise Easley might be in a little bit of trouble here. I'll be totally honest. I don't know all the details there, but obviously something that is quite serious. There's no doubt about that. I've talked about this a lot. I've talked about this, and everyone around the sport has talked about this probably more than we should have, if I'm being totally honest, because Georgia should have this figured out one way or the other. There's no doubt about that. But there's a couple of different things that I want to talk about here. First of all, this does fall on Kirby Smart. That's the reality of every football program around the country. If your players are acting out, you are the one that's going to get the brunt of that hate, the brunt of that reaction. Whatever that is, you are going to be the guy that is the poster child for that, no matter what. And Kirby Smart fully understands that. Obviously, after all of these incidents have happened, he understands that fully. There's no doubt about that. There's a couple of different things that have been said online that I do push back on, and I don't want to act like I am holding water for UGA. I don't want to act like I am, doing anything that looks like I'm trying to dismiss this in any way, because it's a very, very serious issue. If they do not get it figured out, then this Georgia team that should be the envy of college football will continue to get laughed at by just about everyone else. But there's a couple of different things. A lot of people are saying, when is Kirby Smart going to do something? And I've never understood that sentiment. Now, I'm not saying that I know every single happening that has gone on around UGA football. I do know a couple of people that know quite a few things that have gone on around there. The reality is he has brought in people to speak to them about safe driving pretty consistently. These guys have taken courses on defensive driving over the last couple of years. Obviously, after that terrible tragedy that happened in January of 2023, where a recruiting staffer as well as a player passed away in a traffic-related incident. So this is obviously a huge thing for this program. Kirby Smart has brought people in to speak. He has had these guys take courses. He has suspended guys, including these two that have gotten in trouble, and he's kicked guys off the team altogether. He has done a lot of different things. Now, I'm not saying that he's done everything. I'm not saying that he's done a perfect job. Obviously, if he had, this wouldn't be an issue anymore. This would not be something that they're dealing with. But the reality is, if you are going to be someone that says Kirby Smart has to do something, when is Kirby Smart going to step up? When is he going to be an example for his team? Tell me what Kirby Smart has not done that you would like him to do. And there's a couple of different ideas out there. Obviously, you can say he has to kick guys off the team the second they get in trouble for something. I just don't think that's realistic. I don't think that's a thing that any coach around the country would do. I don't think that's a thing that a lot of us would do if we were in the position of Kirby Smart. So that's something that you can have that take if you'd like to. I'd be shocked if you were someone that would go into that room and actually make that decision. But at the end of the day, it doesn't change the result. He's done a lot of different things to try to curb these problems, to try to make sure that they go away. It doesn't change the result, which is more arrests, which is more people getting in trouble for the same exact issues, more people shining a light on UGA for bad things rather than how great of a football program they are, and Kirby Smart being looked at in a lot of different ways. So I wish I had the answer. I wish I had a perfect wand that I could wave over Athens, Georgia, and all these guys would get in line very quickly. I know Kirby Smart wishes he had the answer as well, and I think a lot of you, if you walked into that room and saw all the things he did, I think you'd be very, very convinced that he's done just about everything he can do. Now, there might be a couple other things that can be turned over, and I think the players have to play a huge role in that, but overall, it's an issue. Plain and simple. Arrests keep happening at UGA, and a team that probably should be looked at around college football as the pinnacle of the sport, and everyone trying to strive to be what UGA is, they're kind of laughed at by a lot of different teams. They're kind of laughed at by fans, and a lot of teams don't want to be Georgia because of this issue. Kirby Smart's got to figure it out. Whether or not he's done all of the things that he can do or not, the thing's still happening. That's the reality. The result is the result, and you're going to have to find a way to move forward, and you're going to have to find a way to deal with this one way or the other. I can't say that it's going to be easy. I can't even say that it's going to happen all that soon, but it's got to happen. And if it doesn't, then at some point, Kirby Smart will be let go. The other thing that I want to touch on here just for half a second is a lot of people saying, well, if they win 10 or 11 games per year, the fans won't care. I went to UGA. I very much care. I'll be totally honest with you. I lived in Athens, Georgia for about 5 years of my life. I care a lot. I care that they're putting other people in danger. I care that this team is being looked at the way that they probably shouldn't be. I very much care that this is happening at UGA. I know that Kirby Smart cares. I understand that this is still a problem, and I understand that Kirby Smart's going to get the brunt of that. But the reality is the idea that we as fans, or not speaking for all the fans out there, but me personally, I very much care. I would very much like for this not to happen, and I'd very much like for these players to get punished when it does happen. So both those guys are suspended. We'll see what happens with these two cases, but the problem in UGA has happened for way too long. It's happened way too many times, and they got to find a way to get a solution out there, or at some point, Kirby Smart's going to be in a lot more trouble than he is right now. Moving forward to Stanford. Stanford has let go Troy Taylor, their coach, after a week after kind of revealed university investigations that found he mistreated female staffers. Apparently, he had talked down to them, was very demeaning in different ways, and 20 former and current female staffers were cooperated with investigators, kind of discussed with them what had happened. He said he had inappropriate discriminatory behavior based on sex, and this person decided to remove herself from her assigned duties. A lot of different things have kind of unfolded over there at Stanford over the last little bit, and he has been let go. He's gone 6-18 over his 2 seasons after coming over from Sacramento State. This is someone that, frankly, probably shouldn't be in college sports. If this stuff is true, which you don't fire a guy going into spring football if this stuff is not real, I'm going to be plainly honest about that, he should not be in college football. He should not be in college sports. He probably shouldn't be a coach in sports. I'll just be plainly honest about it. But at the end of the day, if all of this is true, he obviously has been let go. They will move forward into next year with an interim head coach and then try to see who's going to be the next guy. The one very interesting part of this that I do want to unpack here for a second, Troy Taylor, I'm not going to waste too much time on you. I'll be totally honest with you. I don't think you're really worth my time. But one of the very interesting things in this case is Andrew Luck is the person that fired him, who is the GM for the Stanford football team. That is a very interesting precedent to set. I did not think that that was going to be a thing that could ever happen around any university, really. Now, it's different in every university. Obviously, Andrew Luck's a little bit different over there in Palo Alto than just about everywhere else, anywhere else. So the reality is, it totally makes sense that Andrew Luck has the ability to do this. And I'm sure he worked with the AD. I'm sure he worked with the president. I'm sure it was a collaborative effort. But it was Andrew Luck pulling the trigger. It was Andrew Luck, the GM of this team, that was the one that actually fired the head coach. That's going to be an interesting thing to watch. I don't know if it's going to happen across the country. I think a lot of GMs are technically below the coach when it comes to the power structure in these college football programs, but it'll be an interesting thing to watch. Maybe these GMs have a little bit more power than we were thinking, and maybe they do have the power to let go some of these coaches. That'll be a fascinating thing to watch, but overall, I'll be totally honest, fairly happy that Troy Taylor is not in college football anymore, fairly happy that he's not in college sports. If you're going to treat people that way, then you probably shouldn't be. So they move forward. We'll see what happens in 2025, and then they got to find a coach, and they got to find a guy that will stick around for quite a while, because Stanford has been down for much longer than Stanford should probably be down. And then finally, let's talk about some spring games. Let's just get into this for just a little bit. Colorado and Syracuse have filed paperwork to the NCAA requesting the ability to hold spring practices and a spring game together in April. This is something that has gone around just a little bit. Deion said, I want to play someone else. That's what I want to do going forward. And Fran Brown stepped up to the plate. He said, tell me what time to be there, and I will be there to play you guys. So this is an awesome idea. It's something that I very much want to happen. I think Syracuse is a very, very talented team. I think Colorado is a very interesting team going into next year. And if we could have them play in spring ball, I'd be there to watch. There's no doubt about that. I would love to see what these two coaches have going into spring, but this is something that's going to be a little bit tough, at least in this year. Now, I'm very in on this idea. I very much want two teams to be playing each other now. I do have a little bit of different idea. I do think it would be a little bit more helpful and a little bit more worth the while for both teams if it was a Power 5 against Group of 5 team, or maybe a smaller team in your state, let's say, that you can play. Make it a little bit better for them financially. Make it a little bit better for you where your players don't get injured. There's no craziness that happens when you're playing a good team like Syracuse or something like that. So that's the small tweak that I would make, but at the end of the day, if I can see these two teams go at it during spring, I'm going to tune in. There's no doubt about that. I'd love to see these teams go at it. I'd love to see some type of preseason, some type of spring games where you can really see what your team is made of. Because as we all know, getting into spring football, it's a zero-sum game. You don't know if the offensive line is incredible or the defensive line isn't all that great, or the wide receivers are awesome or your back end's not all that great, and that's definitely an issue. Going into the first week of the season, you don't really know who you are, at least yet. So that'll be a really interesting thing to happen. I don't think it'll happen this year. I think it'll take a little bit longer to get all the ducks in a row and make sure that everyone's kind of following all the right protocols, but I love the idea. I think it's going to be a really, really awesome one. And another one that popped up, Mike Gundy said that he'd be more than happy to play Oklahoma during spring. Play that one during the year. What are we doing? That one has to be played during the year. Give me Bedlam back, because the reality is so many teams in the SEC play that out-of-conference game. Georgia Tech play, Florida State. There's no reason that Oklahoma and Oklahoma State cannot get on the field during the season. If we have to buy time just a little bit and they play in the spring for the time being, I'll live with that. But right now, get them to play in the regular season. I don't need a spring game from these two. But overall, love the idea. I think two teams getting on the field, understanding where they're standing going into the next year. And I think these, it would just make for some really great matchups. And maybe even you have a little bit more of an ability to push that FCS game to a spring kind of a setting, and then not have to play them during the regular season, which obviously would solve that big-time problem right before rivalry weekend where everyone's a little mad that the SEC is playing a ton of FCS teams. Maybe you get that out of the way. During spring, you get to know your team just a little bit better, and you get that paycheck for that smaller school. So a lot of different things going into this. I think we'll probably have to wait until next offseason to see a lot of this go into play, but I think it's a matter of time. I think we will see some teams go at it during spring, and I can't wait for it, if I'm being totally honest. But a lot of different things that we can talk about, obviously, as spring goes on. We'll get into some quarterbacks. We'll get into some freshmen to watch. A lot of different things. And if you have any segments that you'd like to see on the show, please leave a comment. I will break them down next week, of course. But a lot of different things happening around here. I'll probably start doing a couple more short type content, maybe open up a TikTok. So a lot of different things kind of happening on my end over here, trying to build my brand just that little bit more. But anyway, you guys want to comment, if you guys want to call me out for something I said, and we can go back and forth, more than happy to do that. If you have a question about what I think about certain issues, more than happy to talk about that on next show. Would love for one of these segments to just be fan questions. So anything that y'all have, leave them in the comments here. Please like and subscribe. Means the world to me. Would do anything to be in this industry for a very long time, and can't do that without you guys' help. So would love for you guys to like, comment, subscribe, do all of that really fun stuff. But that'll do it for this edition of Just Another College Football Podcast. We'll be back next week. We won't take that long hiatus. I'll be honest, got a little bit caught up in March Madness, I won't lie, but at the end of the day, we will be back next weekend. Maybe we'll break down the top 10 teams in college basketball and college football, kind of a combined top 10 next week, because kind of wanted to do that this week, but I'll wait until we're getting into the Final Four, have a little bit more fun to talk about. But we'll talk about that obviously next week. Thank you so much for listening. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you same time, same place right here next week.